Now that that's it, we're going to go over some review on this basic system itself. That is now Fireground Ops, and that is the training we're doing is Fireground Ops only. It is based off the blue card system, but henceforth and furthermore, it shall not be referred to as blue card. It's Fireground Operations. This is the adopted system that we have. Okay? Any questions on that? If you'd like to see more, go to the info portal under Operations tab, and then go to the quick links on the left side, and go to the bottom, and it says Fireground Operations. And you can click on that, and it'll bring up a bunch of this stuff. Okay? So you can review it at your leisure. The point of today is to review the commercial strategy and tactics for the Dairy Queen that's on 152nd and Meridian. We picked that building because it's a standalone commercial building, and it's very similar to the dentist office building over in Six's area that we had the post-incident review on. And so we're going to discuss strategy and tactics in an effort to better set us up for success should we encounter another building that's on fire like that. I don't want to take anything away from the crews that responded to that fire that day, and if any of you guys were there, when we did the post-incident review, we learned that as an organization, we didn't do a very good job of setting up those crews that arrived at that problem for success in the first place. I know if I was the first arriving company officer or as an actor at that time, I don't know that I would have done a whole lot of things different because I didn't know a whole lot more than everybody else at the time, right? But we're learning as we go, and this is our effort to get everybody up to speed on the same page. What we're trying to do as we hit each of these building types is develop basically a playbook so that all of you guys understand what the play is based on the IRR that you hear over the radio while you're responding. So first engine arrives on scene of a problem, they describe it with the IRR, that tells everyone else who's responding that this is the play we're putting into place. And based on what you hear, you can begin to predict what your assignments are going to be. We're all on the same page. It's the baseline start, right? We can always audible from that if conditions warrant it or change, but that's where we're starting. So for today, we're going to review some stuff. If you have questions, ask. I'm going to fly through it real quick because it is review, but you'll get some of this review at the beginning of every session. You've seen this before, right? Standard outcomes. What we're trying to do is, whether it's a residential fire or a commercial fire or a multifamily or a big box, we're trying to set it up so that when you read the problem and you determine what your strategic objectives are and you assign tactics based on the critical fireground factors, that they're always based off the same information, and then we tactically move in the same direction across all three shifts or every engine company, every battalion chief. We all have the same plan in place based on consistent information. Those are our standard actions. Then if we do so all the way across the board, then we should have a standard outcome, right? So that's the focus of what we're going to try to do. The review for level 1 staging, I'll start off with, if you guys have ever heard, raise your hand listening to the radio, you've heard somebody go, level 1, right? Stop doing that, please, because the first arriving engine company officer that's exiting the engine and going to do a 360 wearing all of their gear, trying to listen to the portable radio, size up the fireground problem is really depending on a clear, crisp, I'm level 1 and I'm here to help, right? So that I can hear that, I can grab that company without wondering who it was and assign them to work in the hazard zone. So if you're an engine or a ladder or a medic and you're going level 1, be nice and loud and clear. Engine 60's level 1. That way Lieutenant Ferris hears that and he can grab me right away and assign me into the hazard zone. Okay? Do our company officers a favor. First engine or truck and battalion chief direct to scene, and then we give our on-scene report. The beauty of level 1 staging is that if I don't know exactly what I want everyone to do yet, it puts a cache of people off to the side that I can pull from to assign to the hazard zone, so I don't feel overwhelmed or rushed, right? Level 1 staging goes into effect when I give the IRR. If I don't give the IRR, then what happens? People just show up because they're assuming they're going to be first on scene. So what happens if I don't know what I want to do? If I don't say anything, then there's no level 1, right? So when I arrive on scene, give an IRR. If I have a working fire but I don't know what I want to do yet, then I say I'm investigating in the offensive strategy, determine the alarm, and establish command. Okay? Investigating is a task. You can do that. Give that task, let level 1 staging set up, let crews arrive there and stage, and then you get a good plan together, gather critical fireground information to assign the companies in to go to work. All right, level 1 staging is very, very important. Where do we stop? Engines. Engines at a hydrant. Engines, ladders, and medics. Probably stop at your last spot where you have 2 means of ingress into the scene. Okay? Because we might tell you to come in from this other way or spot over in this one location, right? If you pigeonhole yourself in back to back to back all the way up against each other, you're kind of stuck. Okay? On deck company. We beat this up all the time, but we're going to beat it up some more for the commercial fire because we're going to use you a little bit different in the commercial fire. In the on deck assignment, your primary responsibility is to be ready for what? Mayday, right? If a mayday goes out, the on deck company is going to hear from command after they get their CAN report about what's needed. Then they're going to tell that on deck company to take the things that they need inside and go in and assist with the rescue. Who's most likely to rescue a mayday firefighter? Yourself, somebody from your own company, or somebody operating interior near you, right? So why is it important to get a good CAN report? So the on-deck company can grab the things that will help you and then take them inside, right? Okay. When you hear the assignment of on deck while you're level 1, what should you all be thinking and talking to each other about in the cab? Yeah, I want you to be thinking, okay, based on the IRR, they said that we're in an offensive strategy. If it's a residence and I'm first to level 1 and I know what the play is on a residence when we're offensive, I'm going to be assigned on deck. We know that, right? Okay, so I'm going to get assigned on deck. If I'm the second company to come level 1, what can I assume they're going to give me? Probably on deck again, right? So that I can bump that first company in to do a primary search, just as we practiced last time. We want to get those companies in as fast as we can in the 3 deep deployment model. The IRR is the play. When they put that out there, we all know what we're going to do, right? In the 90th percentile type responses. Sometimes we have to go outside of those, and if we have the basics down, then it's easier to adjust, okay? So first off is rapid intervention crew. Then you can be assigned to relieve an existing crew that's assigned in the division. So what does that sound like? That's like when I call command with a status change and say, I've got a knockdown on the fire, checking for extension, send a crew to replace us so we can recycle. And then command receives that, and then they probably send the on-deck crew to bump up and go inside and relieve you so you can recycle, and then they backfill on deck, right? That's one of our assignments for the on-deck company. Another assignment for the on-deck company is if you're deployed in on a mayday. And the one we're going to practice this block is the assignment of supporting the push, or supporting the company that's in for fire control. Supporting the push being the kind of global term for that assignment to support into the hot zone. But what we're going to practice throughout this block is how do we get that company assigned to assist with the hose lines to get far into a commercial building and around the fire load and upstairs and around pinch points, right? What do we know about manipulating this setup of hose and nozzles that we have? It's kinky, right? Why'd you wink at me, Chad? It was weird. But it is. It's kinky, right? So we have to get extra hands on the hose so that we can maneuver it around the pinch point so that when we get to where we're trying to go, we can flow the gallons per minute that we need, right? The difference between this hose line and the TFTs is that we may be delivering less gallons per minute, but the pattern and the stream coming out of the nozzle is a lot weaker, right? And so we don't have maybe the distribution or the reach that we had before, and it causes a problem. So in recognizing that, we have to do a better job at the firemanship and manipulating the hose lines into the building and managing them around pinch points. So we're going to assign companies to help with that. So ideally we want to do face-to-face, right? So here's one of the things that's coming up a lot with what the engineer position has is the on-deck crews when they rotate out to the division boss in a recycle, we need them to be able to get out and get to decon, right? So be thinking about face-to-face communication. What do you do before you face-to-face when you come out of the hazard zone? Decon. Okay, we need to get that set up. Engine driver, set it up quickly. If we're doing that support function, how does it get assigned? It's a TLO just like everything else. So I want to take a second and talk about how did we even get here in the first place. In the residential, our priority was what? So always life safety, but we did fire control, and then our next assignment, tactical objective, was what? Primary search for an all clear, right? Because in a residential problem, we go, well, there's probably somebody in there. Even if someone comes out and tells us, we're going to assume that the building's occupied until we get our own all clears, right? Well, in the commercial setting, do we have that same tactical priority? Are we in a rush to get a crew inside to do a rapid primary search inside Dairy Queen? What's a bigger tactical priority for us? Yeah, put the fire out, anchor a water supply. Okay, then we get our all clears. In order to put the fire out quick, we got to get enough hands on deck to get there initially. What was one of the problems in the dentist office fire, if you guys remember from the PIR? Again, I don't want to take anything away from these crews because they were working hard and doing what they thought was best. But what happened that prevented us from getting to that fire quick? Pulled the wrong line, right? You had two people pull an 1 3/4 pre-connect that didn't reach. They had a hard time manipulating it into the hazard zone because of the fire load and the stairwells, and they couldn't get it to where it was going because it was the wrong line. We didn't get good information on the 360 to help us determine where the fire was, what type of building construction it was, and where the void spaces were that were containing fire. Then tell us what type of line to pull and how many people we needed on the hose line. Then we didn't get the line into the right space with the amount of people we needed to check for extension. We didn't bring the right tools. We couldn't reach where the fire was, right? These are all things that delayed us in getting a fire attack on a building that was probably could have maybe been a manageable fire had we got to it right away and took care of it. But because we couldn't do that, it progressed and we chased ourselves a little bit and it became a fire that was dangerous to us, right? So we're going to fix that problem with this assignment as part of the fix. This is not a backup line. Who wants to tell me what a backup line is? Protecting egress, right? So if you get assigned a backup line, that line gets deployed into the hazard zone with the sole purpose of protecting egress of the fire control team. So you don't want any fire getting behind them or blocking their exit, right? That's the job. Okay, not an on-deck line, not supporting the push. Sounds like this: engine 60 from command. Support engine 64 with long-handled tools, alpha floor 2 for fire control. It's still a TLO, all right? You're listening. When you get the assignment to support, you're listening for who am I supporting, where am I going to support them, and what is it for? If it's for fire control, what things do I need to have? In general, what do you need for fire control? Water. You need to be able to get the hose line there, and you got to have tools to open the void spaces, right? Because we're still working on our TLOs, if you have somebody just say, support engine 60 floor 2 for fire control, and they don't tell you what to bring, what should you show up with? Hump the hose, tie in face-to-face with them, and bring tools to open the void spaces to help put the fire out, right? If you want something more specific than that, officers, then give a good TLO on what you want them to bring. Long-handled tools as an example, right? If you want them to just assist with fire control, tell them to pull another line to alpha floor 2 for fire control. Be specific, all right? Any questions on that? We're going to practice it out here on the drill ground when you go to the next Wednesday, 4-hour blocks. The fire problem is a second floor fire. We're going to enter on the Delta side. We're going to have some of the guys that were teaching some of the hose stuff, Lieutenant Varellin, MJ, are going to be out here and assisting us with managing pinch points and some of the firemanship between laying these hose lines out of the bulk beds and humping hose up in the upper floors and trying to maneuver that hose line down onto floor 2, right? So that's the goal. We're going to be pulling a lot of bulk beds and practicing how we manage those, okay? So here's the recycle part that we were talking about. We can't effectively recycle if we don't have decon to clean off before we unplug, change our air bottles, check on each other, and then report back to our division to go to work, right? So the engineer's job is to focus on delivering water to the hand lines, securing a water supply, setting up decon. Should the engineer pull a fan and 3 saws and an extension ladder and go place them? The answer is no, right? Who should do those things? Whoever's assigned to do it. Engine company so-and-so from command, throw second means of egress, Charlie side, floor 2. Copy, right? Soften the building. That'd be an assignment that you'd go get some tools and equipment, get them set up. What happens when the engineer is doing those things and how we normally had practiced is the engineer was the one-legged man in the ass-kicking contest for 10 minutes, right? Busiest person on the fire ground. And we had to be that way because we were understaffed and we had to get a lot of stuff done. Well, now what that does is it pulls the engineer away from the fire pump. And what happens is their other crew is pulling another bulk bed line and breaking it and trying to connect it to the pump where there's no engineer there. There's no water getting delivered to the on-deck line because the engineer's gone doing something else. The on-deck line is critical for your Mayday response, right? It's a RIT line, that worst case scenario. We can't have it laying there dry with no pump operator, okay? Then the work cycle ends for the first crew. They come outside to face with the division boss. There's no decon line set up. They can't decon. See how all of this snowballs? So everybody has their roles and responsibilities. It's a well-choreographed event when everybody does all the things they're supposed to be doing. We're going to try to practice that choreography out here next week. The only thing I'm going to mention about rehab is make sure that you passport out of wherever you are working, and when you go to rehab, passport in. I think organizationally, a goal, if you've gone through 2 work cycles and you get through rehab and we don't have this incident under control, I think the BCs would probably like to cut you loose, get you back to start deconning and cleaning up. Unless we don't have the incident under control, then you'll probably keep working. Portable radio reporting. There's been some talk about if I'm supposed to call command, I'm trying to remember what I'm supposed to say. Which one is this? Or if I just want to talk to the pump operator of this engine, how do I do that? Is it a status change or what is it? Just remember that if you guys are talking to each other on the fire ground, it's routine traffic. You can just talk to each other. Hey, you, it's me. Do this thing. Engine 60 pump, charge the bulk bed. Right? Any of those conversations are routine. We want to limit those as much as possible so we're not on the air, but you can use those. When you use the status change and priority traffic type of radio communication, that is from within the hazard zone out to the incident commander. So if you're thinking, I want to talk to the IC about something, it should fit into one of those, a status change or priority traffic. Status changes are command from engine 60 with a status change. I'm about to tell you that whatever I was doing before, I'm done with. And I either need you to replace me with somebody or I don't need anything, right? It's pretty simple. Status changes are pretty benign. My assignment's done. What it does is it tells the IC that that thing is checked off, right? Now what happens if I'm assigned to do fire control or primary search and something's preventing me from being able to complete it? Whether it be access, hose length, don't have the right tools, I'm understaffed. What kind of traffic is that? Priority traffic. Okay, if there's a problem that's affecting my ability to complete my assignment and it directly affects the incident action plan and the IC wants to know about it, that's priority traffic. Okay? IC thinks I'm supposed to be doing this thing, but I can't do it. That should key in priority traffic. What kind of information do I give them when I call them? A CAN report. Yeah, exactly, CAN report. Anytime I'm calling the IC, if it's a status change or priority traffic, it has to be in the form of a CAN report. There's no other way to talk to them. Who in this room has to be good at CAN reports? Everybody. Why? Maydays. Yep, Maydays. That's the whole reason we're doing this, right? If you have a Mayday and give a crappy CAN report to the IC, who suffers? The person who's having the Mayday, right? I mean, we're going to have to work extra hard to figure out what the hell you're talking about so we can help you. But it behooves you as the person having the Mayday to be able to give a good, clear CAN report to the IC so they know what you need so that we can help you, right? That's what this whole system is based off of. So if you're not practicing CAN reports, practice them. Chief.
But above and beyond just Maydays, let's look back at some of the fires we've had, like the dentist office fire. Cliff, as the IC2, was handcuffed on decision making because of the poor information he was getting out of the fire building because of bad CAN reports, right? He wasn't getting any good information. It was garbled. That was just a system thing. But the information he was getting was not beneficial for him to make tactical decisions, and we stayed in the building longer than we should have because he wasn't getting good reports. There wasn't status changes. There wasn't priority traffic with CAN reports attached to him. So it all broke down. He wasn't getting any good information to make good decisions. So it put us at risk because he wasn't getting information to make any decisions. So we stayed in way too long because of the bad info he was getting. So it's actually really, the whole fireground is based on good cans. So ICs can make decisions.
Yeah, caught your attention, huh?
Got to say something good every once in a while.
Who does emergency traffic? Yeah, the IC only, right? So if you hear over the radio, Firecom from command, give me emergency tones, stand by for emergency traffic, any of that terminology right there should perk your ears up. You'll hear a warble of tones, and then that's going to be something that's immediately recognizable to you, right? As something that's out of the ordinary when you hear those tones. So then listen up, because the information coming is going to be important. There's either a mayday taking place on the fire ground, there's a change in strategy taking place on the fire ground, or it may be that there is some sort of a danger or a hazard where there's a isolation zone or a exclusionary zone that's in place that you're not to go in, right? Also following that, you should, as companies, be looking at each other to make sure that you're par. And you're not going to call command once you're par. Command will do the roll call for par to you, okay? But it's our responsibility to make sure our companies are par after we hear emergency traffic. Make sure we're all good. What happens if you're not par after that? Mayday. Somebody's missing, right? If there's emergency tones and we can't find somebody and we're changing strategies, or there's a mayday on the fire ground and we can't find somebody, who do you think the mayday is about? Might be that person, right? So if you can't make sure your company is par after emergency tones, you have a problem, okay? And somebody missing on the fire ground's a mayday. Now, if you are not involved in the hot zone, you're outside working somewhere, you think your third might have been filling bottles or doing something else, and command calls you for a par, you can tell them to stand by for a moment while you go try to locate that individual, and then you can follow up with them once you've confirmed that you're par. But if you can't locate them, then it's a mayday. Okay? Everybody good there? This is on the info portal. Your conditions, action, needs, it's on that location I said. The operations tab, then the quick link, then fireground ops. This is on there. Read it, practice it, study it, be good at it. We're still doing a fast attack command from the position of inside the building, because inside the hot zone gives the strategic IC, the initial IC, the fast attacking IC, whatever you want to call them, gives them the best possible position to continue to make tactical decisions, because they're constantly getting information about the hot zone and what's going on, and they're in the best position to know what's needed. It's also a supervisory role for in the hot zone, so that we can ensure crew integrity and safety and make sure that the tactics that we're employing are working and continue to match the strategy. Okay? This significantly reduces maydays having that level of supervision inside the building. All right, tactical priorities in an offensive firefight for a commercial building. Number one is still fire control, right? Whether it's residential or commercial, if our number one priority overall is life safety, then we all knew this before we started and became firefighters, that if you put water on fire, that was good, right? So now we're just making sure we assign that as a tactical priority. We get that done as quick as possible. We know that it makes conditions inside better for any occupants that are in there, and it also makes our working conditions better. So that's still our tactical priority. We have water supply and primary search. On the residential, what was number two, without a doubt? Yeah, we're trying to get that primary search done right away. We're assuming somebody's inside the building till we get our own all clears. In Dairy Queen, we have a working fire in a building that there's property to protect, but we apply our risk-benefit model to this. What is it? We risk a lot to save lives that are known to be savable. What are we risking for Dairy Queen? Nothing, right? We're going to size up the building and the problem. We're going to make tactical decisions based on gathering good information from the beginning, and then we're going to apply that information to the assignments that we make, and then we're going to, as professionals, take care of business. We're going to slow down, and we're just going to handle the problem, right? But we're not going to risk each other's safety for the commercial building fire because we're rushing in without good information. So we need to anchor a water supply. We're still going to get primary searches for all clears. It just bumps down the list a little bit, okay? What kind of ventilation are we talking about? Let's start with hydraulic, right? Yeah. We know from the training we've been doing and the fires that we've been using it on, and some of the guys who've been around here for a while that made a living out of using hydraulic ventilation, it kind of went away for a while, that it works really, really well. So let's start there, see if it shows us where the fire extension is. Let's clear the room out, make the primary searches go faster, make our working environment better. Okay, start with that. Don't forget about that. What happens as soon as you put water on a working fire? The conditions get worse. Initially, it feels like it, right? Everything gets darkened down, your mask gets fogged up, it's hard to see. But as soon as you start hydraulically ventilating, that stuff goes away and you can finish doing what you're doing. Okay, so get that second nature. Let's do that. Loss control, we're still doing our overhaul stuff. And firefighter decon, we can't forget about that. If you arrive on scene of a building that's on fire and your first thought is, I'm pulling a line to it, it's a working fire. If you arrive on scene of a building with smoke showing and your first thought is, I should probably still have them pull a line, that's a working fire, okay? So make sure you call it a working fire. That lets everybody know what we're arriving to. If a medic unit gets on scene first, what do they say? Yeah, see the theme here? Working fire, right? That's good information. Firecom engine 60. Engine 60 is on scene of a medium 2-story commercial building. We have a working fire on the alpha side. Pulling a line to alpha for fire control and the offensive strategy. Upgrade the alarm. I'll be 176 command. When we get to working commercial fires, we're upgrading the alarm. Okay? Working commercial fire is a second alarm. Try to look at your MDC company officers on your way to these commercial fires and pick out a staging location before you get there and have to talk about it on the radio so that it's already in your mind. Because when you say upgrade the alarm, give Firecom a place to have level 2 staging. So be thinking about it on your way there. Let's say that I don't have a location for where I want to attack this fire, but I still have a working fire. Firecom engine 60. I'm on scene of a medium 2-story commercial building with a working fire. We're investigating in the offensive strategy, upgrade the alarm, level 2 staging at Safeway at 176 in Canyon. I'll be Canyon Command. Okay. I'm still offensive. Everybody knows there's a working fire. I've set up level 1 staging so that my pool of resources can show up. But I'm going to try to figure out where the best place to access this thing is and where I want to anchor it, right? Because where I arrived and saw the working fire may not be the best spot. So maybe I want to park on Delta, and Delta is my best access to where the fire is, so I can pull lines and go inside and deal with it. How far are we going into the building? 150 feet. Why is that? Just an arbitrary number or pre-connect length, or what do you think? What's that? Yeah, directly related to air management, right? So be thinking about every time we go into these hazard zones, how did we arrive at the numbers we arrived at? Well, just like a scuba diver, how far underwater are they going to go? Only as far as you get back out, right, with some time to spare in case you have a problem? Okay. And that's based off of how much air you have in your tank and if you have an emergency and how long it'll take you to get out. So it just so happens that pre-connect's 150 feet, or if we pull our bulk bed, we're not going farther than 150 feet in the building. We imagine the amount of time it's going to take us to get 150 feet deployed around the fire load, charge hose line, get to where the fire is, do any amount of work, and then be able to recycle and leave the environment. And we have some time built in there in case we have a problem, right? So that's how we arrive at that. Managing the fire control benchmark, we got knockdown versus fire control. Again, this is a review, and we'll go over it real quick. Knockdown is when we stopped the progression of the incident. Fire is continuing to burn. Fire development curve is increasing. We put water on the fire, and we reset it, right? We stop the growth. We stop the heat. We stop the amount of fuel that's burning. We stop the increase of the chemical reaction, and we reset it. That's knockdown. Do we tell anybody about that just as soon as we do it? No, it's not needed, right? Because what's the assignment? Fire control. And if you're doing fire control correctly, what will you get to first? Knockdown. So who wants to know, what does the IC want to know? They want to know when the fire's under control, right? So when you call them with a status change because the fire is under control, they'll have known that you hit knockdown and then you got fire control. If you can't get to the fire and you have priority traffic, your CAN report would probably tell them where you are and that you have knockdown. You can't reach the extension. You need a tool, company with long-handled tools to come in and assist you, right? So that's when you would assign knockdown, or you would say knockdown over the radio, part of your CAN report. You also could have, when you do your command transfer, battalion chief arrives, they want to assume command, you do a command transfer, and during that CAN report, you've already got a knockdown on the fire. You tell them at that point, and then any needs that you have, okay? If you were to just arbitrarily say knockdown over the radio, that's positive reporting. We don't need to hear that. Can you guys on the fire ground tell when knockdown's taking place? How? Right. Okay, so from the on-deck position, maybe when you're out front and if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing as the on-deck company, which is sizing up the fire ground problem, understanding the building type of construction, where the fire is, the layout of the building, what the next assignment's probably going to be, because the on-deck company is going to get bumped in to the hazard zone pretty soon to do something else, right? Whether it be a RIT Mayday problem, or you're bumped in to do a primary search, or you're bumped in to support the fire control efforts. You're going in. So you should be paying attention to what's going on. And you know you have knockdown because you have conversion. You see a change in the conditions. You already are listening to the radio and you know what the plan was. And when we set the play in motion at the beginning, you kind of know how this is supposed to go, right? And if I see hydraulic ventilation coming out the window, then I really know, right? We're all on the same page. Fire control is, I've done that, I've knocked the fire down, I've opened all the void spaces, I check for fire extension in all the void spaces, and I'm looking for charred wood all the way to clear, clean wood all the way around it. I can set my hose line down and then I can walk out of the building and I'm not expecting the condition to return or get any worse, okay? Everybody good with that? That doesn't mean that the incident is totally over, just means that the fire control effort is done. We still have salvage and overhaul, right? All right. Commercial building critical factors. Pay attention to the age, the size, the arrangement, the construction type. If they're before the 1960s, they generally didn't have prefabricated trusses. But here's the thing. It's really hard to tell in a lot of these commercial buildings how old they are or how much they've been added onto. What I want you to take away from this is that a lot of the commercial buildings have facelifts done to them to match the other buildings that are around them, so they look really nice, but on the other side of that facelift, it's dog shit, right? There's a hodgepodge of different occupancies with different roof types, void spaces, some have firewalls, some don't. You don't know what you're getting into, right? So a good 360, officers using the thermal imaging camera, looking at roof sizes, types, conditions, structural integrity during the initial 360 of the fire. All of those things are really, really important to determine if when you get done with your 360, you have a change in the IAP or not. We're going to slow down. We're going to get good fire ground information. Nobody should feel rushed going into this commercial building fire. You should feel informed before you go to work, right? That's the goal. Identifying which occupancy can be difficult. So when we show this Dairy Queen, there's two different doors. In the front, there's a Dairy Queen entrance, and then right next to it is another door. That's the entrance to the staircase that goes up to floor 2. If you weren't really paying attention, you might go in the wrong door thinking it's the right one. The job of the third is really important, right? You're pulling the line, you're getting to the front door, you're working on forcing the door, you're identifying what the right access point is, controlling the flow path. That's up to you guys as thirds, okay? Parallel cord trusses and TGIs. I'm going to show you some pictures of those. Where those come into play is when you're checking the floor construction in between floor 1 and floor 2 generally. What we're looking for is if we have a working fire above us when we walk in on floor 1, or if we have a fire on floor 2, if we're going to have a working fire below us when we go up the stairs. So working fire on floor 2, I make entrance into floor 1, pop the ceiling and check it, make sure that there's no working fire in there. I'm looking for the construction of that floor type and to see how it's going to behave if there is a fire in there. There's a couple indicators, right? Parallel cord truss. What do you guys notice about this? What stands out? It's all open, right? Yeah, sometimes it's called the running W, all open. And if this is up in between a drop ceiling and then the plywood floor above you, you have a concealed space where you can have a fire developing, right? The fire will move freely in between. Horizontal fire spread across the whole floor is possible, and it has a pretty quick failure rate. But so does this. This can also fail quick, The difference is that it's not as open as the parallel cord truss. It does have holes punctured in it oftentimes for conduit and for HVAC stuff, so fire can travel, but it's also channeled in the floor. So when I go into floor 1 and I pop the ceiling, if I see this and I don't have smoke in this channel, I might check a couple other ones just to verify that I don't have a fire there, okay? But if I have this and I pop one ceiling tile, if there's smoke there, will I see it? Probably, right? Because it's open and it horizontally will spread. Real quick tip on cantilevered canopies. This comes into play when you are offensive at a commercial building, or you get told to go defensive, or you arrive defensive. One thing that we have is the desire to put water on the fire from wherever we are, right? So even if you're defensive and you can see some fire over there, then you can move that way just a little bit with your line, because if I reach around this corner, I can put some water on that. You guys need to be reading the buildings and understanding how they're going to respond to being on fire. A cantilevered canopy generally is a canopy that's sticking straight out from the building, and it's being held in place by a parapet wall. And as that roof system starts to fail or the parapet wall starts to fail, that's what keeps this cantilevered canopy out. And that parapet wall goes down, the cantilevered canopy goes down. So don't be standing underneath it, all right? Steer clear of those things. You can see in the yellow, we're talking a little bit about that creeping. We've got NIOSH reports of firefighters that have been trapped or injured from falling debris because they're not where they're supposed to be. If you understand the building construction and know where you should not be standing, don't get drawn in because you think you can do something. What's the life safety risk of this building? It's ours, right? When you're at this point, when you're defensive, you are just protecting exposures and watching garbage burn. Okay? Don't get trapped. So since this is our life safety hazard, when we enter into a commercial building, we need to have charge hose line and we need to have a reference point. And that charge hose line is the best reference point. If I got a working fire on floor 2 and I go into floor 1 to check the overhead and make sure that I don't have a fire burning in between the floors, should I have a charge hose line with me? Yes. Now, do I have to drag it all the way into floor 1 with me if I can see like this? What's the rule that we employ for having a reference point? Voice, vision, and touch, right? Remember that from the academy days? Right? Voice, vision, and touch. Can I pull the line into the door while somebody comes in here a couple feet and pops the ceiling and takes a look? And the officer looks with thermal imaging camera, doesn't see any heat or temperature, no smoke comes back out, but I have a charged hand line just in case? Sure. Because what happened in those NIOSH reports, they make their way farther into a building because it's clear and it looks like this, and they got a dry hose line, or they don't have one at all, and then somebody pops the ceiling open, or the pressure within the compartment up there from the fire burning breaks the ceiling apart, conditions rapidly change, people get lost, all of a sudden you have firefighters that are disoriented and you have maydays, right? So we're going to take charged hose lines, we're going to use those as reference points. The vast majority of offensive fire attacks brought under control by the first 1 or 2 well-placed lines. You can see it written on the board here. As the first line goes, so goes the fire. The dentist office fire, pulled an 1 3/4 line, forced the 2 front doors, broke the glass, created a flow path, took a line into floor 1. Noticed in the ceiling on floor 1 that the can lights had smoke emitting from them. We missed some of the indicators on the 360 that told us that there was a fire working between the floors. We didn't check before we went upstairs. We pulled the wrong line to the top of the stairs and we couldn't reach the fire. When we got up there, we didn't have the manpower to assist humping more hose or to bring the tools to open the void spaces. We couldn't reach the attic space to put water on the fire. Okay? So as the first line goes, so goes the fire, right? How did the first line go? Not great. Okay? So we're not doing that anymore. We're going to work on how we're going to deploy that line. And we're going to practice that over and over again coming up. We always pull subsequent lines. We're going to go to exposures, Bravo and Delta, if this is a strip mall. In this instance, when we're going to a Dairy Queen with a hair salon on top, where's our other lines going? We got one going up to floor 2 for fire control, and what else do we need to do? Backup line to protect our egress in the stairwell. On deck line outside, ready to go. Okay. Check the alpha side for your tactical options. Generally, it's easier to get in on the alpha side than it is on Charlie. Sometimes you have to go to Charlie. Lots of fires start on Charlie. What can we expect on the Charlie side that's going to make it harder for us? Commercial reinforced doors, right? Difficult access. So be prepared for forcible entry on the Charlie side. When we talk about fire load to you guys, I don't want you just thinking so much about how much stuff in here is going to catch on fire, but more so how are we going to maneuver our hose lines around all this stuff that's going to catch on fire, right? Fire load should directly relate to you guys to how difficult it's going to be to advance hose lines into this compartment. Here's what we saw at drill. Based on simulated fire loads, deploying lines to Delta. The first company that's on scene says that they're pulling lines to Delta for fire control. They're in the offensive strategy, upgrade the alarm, whatever command. First company goes level 1, they put them on deck Delta. Next company goes level 1, they put them on deck Delta. Then they tell the first company that's on deck to support engine 60 on Delta floor 2 for fire control. Sounds like a good plan, right? Let's get them in place, help them hump hose. But instead of waiting for them to get there so that they can all go together, they kind of use it as an on-deck assignment and then just took off, right? Well, now they've got to wait for that support company to get here and help them. By the time they get here to help, they're inside up the stairs, yanking on the hose line, trying to get around the corner with multiple pinch points. Officers running back down the stairwell trying to help pump hose. Third is going up the stairs by themselves, trying to get further and further in advance. We're not deploying that hose line effectively. We're not doing our due diligence to check the overhead. We're not bringing people with us to help support fire control efforts, right? So what happened the next time when we fixed that, which took a long time the first time, the next time we have that same set of assignments. First company that's level 1 goes on deck. Second company that's level 1 goes on deck. First on deck company, bump up to support engine 60 on Delta floor 2 for fire control. They go meet up with the engine company that's right here on Delta, laying out their hose line, getting their tools ready to go. They've charged the line. They go, hey, we're here to support you. Great. You're going to hump hose in the stairwell. As soon as we get to where we need to be, bump up with the tools and start opening void spaces. We'll tie in upstairs. Excellent. Now we've got 5 people moving through the stairwell, humping hose in the right spots, getting the line deployed to where the fire is. The tools are in place. The fire control team is there, company officer with a tick, third with the nozzle, 2 or 3 other people on the other crew, open and void spaces, and it's done, right? We get everything put in place, and it's efficient. And so that's what the goal is, okay? Sprinkler controlled fires, just touching on these real quick. These are equally as dangerous for us in just the fact that you have limited visibility. It's still an IDLH environment. When you go into these spaces, what's the #1 problem for us? What makes it so difficult? Low visibility, and it's hard for us to do anything about it. Cold smoke doesn't move very well. It's hard to ventilate, especially in large spaces, right? Why is it easier to ventilate hot smoke? Yeah, there's pressure and it moves, okay? But cold smoke's just lazy, it hangs around and we can get disoriented, and if we're not on our reference points, then we're in an IDLH environment, we can get lost, okay? So we gotta be careful on these. And what's the urgency? It's cold smoke fire, sprinkler controlled. We're there to support it and do overhaul. So slow down, right? So as a fire department, when we hear commercial fire and we show the first arriving company get on scene and they give an IRR that says we have a working commercial fire, we're in the offensive strategy, upgrade the alarm, I'm whatever command, all of us should take a sigh of relief and say, okay, commercial building, we know the plan that's in place, the play has been set. When I go level 1, I have a pretty good idea what I'm going to do. The next company goes level 1, pretty good idea of what I'm going to do. First arriving engine company officer, your pool of resources waiting for you. Get good fire ground information, size it up, deploy your resources inappropriately, build your cache of personnel and equipment out front, and then deploy with the right amount of people, tools, and equipment inside to take care of the fire the first time. Okay? Paramedics in the room, a couple of us. First pass success at intubation, right? We don't just go diving into a tube as fast as possible and then hope for the best, right? We don't grab the wrong tubes right away and try to throw them in there. We set up for first pass success. We calculate what the problem is. We figure out what devices we need, what it's going to be, and then we want to go in the first time and do it, right? It's no different. Good fire ground information so that we're successful the first try, okay? All right. If anybody has any questions on that, that's the review part. We're going to move into sets and reps and see some pictures of Dairy Queen. Unless you have any questions on the review, take a break.